We've just finished the third in the CxO series here at Digital Transformation World. In this invitation-only session, we specifically looked at the area of edge and edge in all of its different manifestations, and trying to drill down into telecoms operators and their business case for edge, how to monetize edge. We talked about partnerships, and we tried to focus where we could on the enterprise customer. So I'm here with Bob DeHaven. Bob is General Manager, Worldwide Media and Communications at Microsoft. Welcome, Bob. And with Nick Willetts, CEO of TM Forum. Bob, maybe if I could just come to you first. So the first session that we ran today was all around the business case from a telco perspective. Did you get a sense that we're getting close to defining what the business case might be for a telecoms operator in edge?
Yeah, I do believe we did. By the way, Mark, I thought that was one of the more fascinating sessions I've seen done in this industry that sort of brings a real conversation down more than the surface level. I thought that was a great discussion. So thank you guys for hosting that. But my response to that would be, yes, I think the business case is being correctly developed right now, because what we're seeing is this merger of connectivity and speed, obviously being through 4G LTE or 5G, cloud scope and scale vis-a-vis AI or IoT connectivity ability, and then technological advances in things like cameras and that are low powered. And what we're doing is we're creating a new business environment, a new way to do business. And I think this 5G discussion, while largely centered on the enterprise today, eventually will work into the consumer space. But boy, we're seeing these things come together very rapidly right now. And that conversation surfaced a lot of those discussions today.
And Nick, it really does seem that we are moving towards new partnership models. And we had Sean Hackle from Microsoft on the session today. We had Juan Carlos from Telefonica as well. And this is happening, isn't it? The partnerships are happening. I guess we can go into the detail a bit later, but it seems that both sides are committed to working with each other.
Yeah, that's right. And I think to build on Bob's point about the business case, we've shifted from what are the use cases, of which there seem to be an infinite number, to now the question I opened the session with today was, show me the money. And what I liked about the answer we got from the panel was really in line with what Bob's saying. We're seeing the bringing together of what I call a perfect storm of technologies. You've got cloud, edge as an extension of that, 5G, AI, all coming together at the same time. And you can literally just, the mind explodes with the possibilities. The big shifting point I saw in the conversation today was a recognition that there isn't just one business case. This industry, the telecom industry, is sort of programmed to find a killer app and then go after it relentlessly. That's our past. Our future, and this was recognized by the panel, is embracing our role in a bigger ecosystem, growing the pie, as the panel called it, and being a big part of that. And I think that's great to see that mindset shift change. Also great to see people respecting the fact that that means that the telecom industry is to change how good a partner it is, how well it works with others. So I'm actually really encouraged by the discussion, because we've gone from what felt like a somewhat big numbers, big use cases discussion to one people saying, look, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and we're well on the way to doing it.
And Bob, it does seem as if this partnership model will be relevant regardless of who does what in the go-to-market. So there's a go-to-market which is telco-led. Mm-hmm. There could be a go-to-market which is hyperscale cloud provider-led. There could be a go-to-market model which is led by somebody else, but that partnership model is still there behind it. It seems quite robust.
Mark, and I thought that's what surfaced out of the conversation today that I found most encouraging, is that this whole concept of whatever the solution is that gets developed, whether that's around video cameras and remote access, or IoT measuring access points, or a whole range of things. It's all about each of us becoming a part of each other's supply chain to deliver it. And that's the first time I've seen that conversation sort of develop at that level, where the carriers, both large and small, saw access and opportunity in that to be part of that supply chain, where maybe they're providing the physical bandwidth and some level of security, and then some expertise or development around a particular vertical, whether it be healthcare or manufacturing. And the global cloud providers are providing AI technology at the edge of that network, or IoT standards for them to build an ecosystem to go participate in. So I really saw this as a true growing the pie experiment, but I saw it as all of us understanding we're becoming part of the supply chain together. There is no dominant player in this. It's whatever markets are going to emerge, it's who's going to be flexible enough to address that market. That's what I saw come out of that conversation today.
Yeah, and I think to build on that, Bob, the recognition I've heard, one of the first real conversations I've had around what does that opportunity look like for the smaller players in the markets. I mean, certainly when we talk about edge, a lot of the research we've done shows that if you're the dominant incumbent, yeah, it's a pretty attractive proposition, slightly less clear value proposition if you're smaller. But where we got into today is this is a genuine two-sided business model. Telcos are going to need to consume edge just as they're starting to really embrace public cloud. That's going to be critical for some of the new just connectivity services they want to provide. But then the recognition that because these possibilities are endless, let's think about B2B2C examples. We enter stadiums we heard about today, or esports, which is becoming a huge business, particularly in the last year. I think these are opportunities, even if you're one of the smaller players or operating in a small market without that B2B business of your own. And as you say, it's very much a case of understanding, well, I've got value to add to a much bigger pie, and I'll see my return from that.
Exactly, and you know, part of the servicing, I one of the big carriers mentioned it today, was the whole private versus public approach to this too. And so I think the smaller carriers can choose their specified customers that they're so deeply engaged with, and create these private networks on the edge with a bunch of functionality from the global cloud providers, and build a longer term profit model from that's going to allow them to compete head to head with the big carriers too. So I just think this is a new way of monetizing, and we're all seeing this as a collaborative effort to be able to get there.
Yeah, and it feels like the sort of who stole my cheese kind of conversations that were happening a couple of years ago. There was much less of the am I forming the right partnership when it comes to working with hyperscalers. I think it feels to me like that conversation has grown up a little bit, and that we're actually recognizing a different kind of economics in play, which are platform economics, and that's really where the future is.
And you know, part of that, Mark, I don't want to continue to dominate on this one topic. I'll give the floor back over to you in a second, but I think part of that is the world state, right? COVID has driven us all to understand the value of us working together to solve both enterprise and consumer problems. And I think the forum has done TM Forum has done a fabulous job of helping create standards, creating an ecosystem to sort of advance that. And the conversation we had today was just another example of that.
So one of the interesting discussions that we had was what you can do within the next 12 months. And if we look at the world of telcos, there are many tier ones in large markets who are already embarking upon an edge computing strategy, looking both in edge computing services and looking at their network edge. But there's others who will be observing what's going on, reading about what's going on, trying to work out what they should be doing. Do you feel we came away with any clear sense of what you can be doing in the next 12 months? Is it an all or nothing thing? Maybe can you just sort of dip your toes in the water and try things incrementally? Any thoughts around that, Bob?
I forget who made the comment, but somebody, it might have been Sean, making the point about the ability to fail fast. And the fact that you can sort of dabble in this stuff at a very low end, pick out some of these resources, develop a solution around a particular niche market that you might be seeing in your local market, and roll something out rather easily because it is cloud compute. It's not something you're bringing a bunch of gear in and having to do. There's this ability to experiment and fail fast. And so the sense I got from the conversation was everyone came away from that meeting going to walk away and figure out an early access path for an edge 5G private MEC, something in that space. And I just thought you guys advanced that conversation tremendously well today.
And that fail fast is an interesting one, isn't it? Because it runs counter to telco culture. Maybe it runs counter to how they traditionally invest in areas as well. So, so we don't tend to think about that alongside edge computing, but in this case, it absolutely is true, I think.
This has been a really significant pivot point this year. As Bob says, I mean, if we characterize the industry sort of pre-COVID, and I guess we're still during COVID, but hopefully soon post-COVID. Pre-COVID, I think we were in a slight state of paralysis. I mean, we were kind of, talking about these ideas, but not really much happening. And honestly, going through the series as we have been in the last few weeks, the focus on people and the importance of the ways of working changes that have been made and will be made, and the link between that and the ability to experiment. Terms like fail fast, I think, are very much in the language, but to me, the term we need to focus on is experimentation. And just look at that example Bob just gave on Edge. If we went back a decade, this would have been a conversation with the CFO about a multi-billion-dollar investment in this concept called Edge. And let's not forget, these aren't new concepts. We're kind of going backwards in time when it comes to some of these technologies in many ways. But today, for a telco, that can be a very, very easy, low capital investment option to experiment. The key as to whether it works or not comes down to customer relationships, understanding that customer, and the ability of your people to turn that understanding into a solution. And I'm really encouraged because for the first time I see an industry that's actually got that laser focus on that ability. We've got to go execute now, but I think that's a big turning point in the last few months.
Let me make one more comment. That I was thinking about this in the conversation today, and I didn't want to interrupt some of the panel speakers, but Mark, your question about what is everybody doing in the next 12 months. As this becomes part of your DNA, you start to problem solve differently, right? You start to look at the market very, very differently. And let me just give you an example. In the broadcast space, and this is for big carriers or small carriers. So look at Disney. They have had to fundamentally shift their entire value proposition away from theatrical releases, away from, all these big brands that they're running through television, and they're going exclusively to streaming. How are they going to do that? They're going to do that through relationships with the carriers, right? They're going to have to build that model. And Disney's an example at the top end of the scale on how much this business has changed in the last 9 months. There are small providers, new sports content providers that are trying to create the same impact of being in the stadium when you can't be there. And so small carriers can address that market in their local regions, and they can create solutions in that space. So I think this whole conversation is fundamentally changing how carriers view the market. And it's been such an accelerated pace. And TM Forum has been such a critical part of helping guide them through that conversation that I'm very bullish and very excited about the immediate future.
Well, it was great to have such a lively debate and to come away feeling so positive. So Nick and Bob, thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you both.
Thank you, Mark. Pleasure.
Bye-bye.